Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the weekly book steep where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. I have my Pete Chroma Panda mug. I have Red Centre Tea by Black Brews in here. It is still very warm, so I'm not going to drink it just yet, but I'm looking forward to it because it is delicious, like it smells divine. I also appear to not only be having lighting issues, but microphone issues, and I can't figure out why, so fingers crossed I don't lose audio halfway through this video and don't notice. This is my reading week from the 2nd until the 8th of May. This week has been wild. I've been feeling off all week. I've read a lot because that is my coping mechanism, but I have been feeling rather unwell and I keep losing my voice. So fingers crossed my voice holds out as well. We're hoping for a lot in this video. This week I read 13 books, a total of 2,977 pages. I had 3 rereads on audio, 0 DNFs, and technically 1 book for a project, but I haven't actually filmed a video of said project, so it's just an ongoing project of themed books that I'm reading. So my audio rereads this week, surprising absolutely no one, were Clean Sweep and Sweep in Peace by Ilona Andrews. I was listening to the graphic audio as well. I was doing bits and pieces and chores and things like that, just as something to have on in the background. They are my background pieces. This is sci-fi / paranormal romance set on Earth, featuring an inn, which is an intergalactic way station. You have space vampires and space werewolves and all sorts of space political things happening. It's delightful. Graphic audios are great. They're short and very easy to listen to. I also reread Irresponsible Puckboy by Finley and Saxon, which is book 2 in the Puckboys series. I'm just slowly waiting for the audiobooks to come through on Libby, and I'm just reading them when they do. So this is a series of queer hockey romances, and in this case, in this series, we're following basically the nightmare PR disasters of the NHL, and in Irresponsible Puckboy, we're following Dex and Trip, who are best friends. Trip has been in love with Dex basically the entire time he's known him. Dex has been completely oblivious until suddenly he's not. It is very much a bi-awakening story. It is very funny and very sweet as these two figure out what their relationship actually is. It's a good time. What can I say? Then going into everything new that I read this week, and the majority of this week I basically marathoned through the end of a couple of series that were on my series to read list because I felt like it. Also, you're going to sense a big theme. We are back on our hockey nonsense, if we ever left. The first thing that I read this week was Space Royal Observatory Greenwich poetry book. This was a poetry anthology that has been created, edited by Gaby Morgan. It features poetry about space and the universe and the solar system. It is broken up into different categories. So telescope, Greenwich, the sun or stars, the moon, the universe, people and time. There were a number of poems in here that I enjoyed, or a number of phrases within those poems that I enjoyed, but for the first part of this book, what it really felt like was old white people poetry. I don't know how to describe it other than that, because as someone who finds it really difficult to read anything that is older than my age, which, you know, we're going on 40 this year, so there's just a distinct style, and I'm like, okay, I understand the sentiment, and there was some in here that I really loved, but for the most part, I don't know, I expected to be more wowed by this, and I wasn't, which is a little bit disappointing, but, you know, I will take anything that I can get at the moment on Space, so we'll leave it there. All right, I read a short novella by Canterbary called Fine Lines. This is about Beth and Jay. They are doctors, so they sit within the worst guy universe in terms of their part of that world. This is a workplace animosity to lovers story. Beth has been asked to present at a conference, and it's her first time presenting. She does not get along with Jay because she overheard Jay talking to one of the doctors who was planning on hiring her, basically saying, "Over my dead body, will you hire her?" No context. So she has spent the last little while believing that he hates her, and so she hates him. And on the way to the conference, things do not go according to plan. Her flight is delayed, her booking reservation at the hotel is nowhere to be seen, and Jay offers to let her stay with him because he happens to be on the same flight and checking in at the same time. And she really very reluctantly kind of agrees to this because she needs to get ready. She needs time to prepare, and she's nervous about her talk, which Jay tells her is fantastic. Like, he says, "You are ready and this is amazing." And she can't resolve the fact that he's been really nice to her when she fully believes that he hates her. And it turns out that he's been in love with her the entire time and basically was planning on asking her out and, you know, eventually marrying her. And that's why he said, anyway, you have to read the short story to get it. It is very Kate Canterbury. She does write very alpha male MCs in contemporary settings, so you just have to be mindful of that. But it was very fun. Like, I have no issues with Kate Canterbury's writing or the tropes that she includes because she does it so well. Then I read Roadside Assistance by Jodi Payne, which is a novella. This is a story about a single dad who gets caught out one night. His car breaks down while he and his son are in the car, and the tow truck driver comes, and basically the car needs a new something or other. I don't know cars. Both the dad and the tow truck driver are kind of intrigued by one another, but they don't do anything. Nothing is said, and then they reconnect when the car is picked up. And it's a very sweet little story about a single dad being ready and willing to go out on a date with somebody and to fall in love with somebody, and I enjoyed it. It was very sweet. Then everything else that I read this week is part of JJ Mulder's hockey universe. So there's 2 series. There is Offsides, which is professional hockey players, and the South Carolina U hockey series, which is a college hockey series. So they're all queer stories. There is a reading order, but I think for the sake of reviewing, I will just talk about them in their series categories. I had 1 book left in the Offside series to read, which was From Coast to Coast. This is Remy and Grayson's story. We have Remy, who is newly divorced and has just been traded to Calgary, and he turns up at the team and he discovers that the locker room is interesting. Grayson is a member of the team. He is out, and basically the majority of the people in the locker room treat him as a pariah for it. And you can tell straight away that it is not a very safe or queer-friendly place to be. There are people on the team who Grayson has as allies, but for the most part, he just kind of keeps to himself. And it is Remy and Grayson falling for one another. It is a secret relationship kind of story in that they can't really tell anyone. They end up initially as roommates, as Remy needs a place to stay, and Grayson offers up his spare room because he actually likes having people stay there. Both of them are on dating apps, and this is how the kind of the secret identity stuff comes into it. They both start talking with a guy on this dating app. Remy has never considered himself interested in guys, but all of his past relationships, including his marriage to his best friend, which just didn't work for reasons, and people have said, well, maybe you just need to be a bit more open-minded. And so he's open to seeing if dating guys is something that brings him a better relationship. And they're both talking to these people online. Turns out they're talking to one another, literally bedrooms apart. Very cute trope. And so their roommates becomes friends with benefits, which becomes a relationship. And then also looks at a long distance relationship because Grayson eventually takes a trade because he wants out of a toxic environment. And Remy tells him, you need to take it because it is not good for you here. So it's a really interesting story. The one thing I will say about this one is there is a resolution, but obviously their playing careers are not finished by the end of the book. So there's also not a resolution in a number of ways. But did it bother me that much? No, not really. From Coast to Coast finished off my Offsides read. And then I basically had 4 more books to read in the SCU world. So that started with Save the Game, which is book 2 in the series. And this is Max and Luke's story. Max is a hockey player. Luke is a baseball player in their respective college teams. At the very beginning of the book, we begin with Max waking up in hospital, not knowing how he got there, and finding out that his best friend found him very disoriented, very much under the influence of a drug, which turns out to be Rohypnol, and that his best friend is concerned that he has been raped. And we find out that that is the case, but Max has no memory of any of this happening. So that's the very first chapter, so be mindful because this book will rip your heart out. Then we jump forward and Max is back playing hockey. He hasn't really told anyone. The only person who knows is Marcos, his roommate and best friend, who also plays baseball. He plays baseball with Luke. Marcos is always checking in with Max to make sure that he's okay. And Marcos does get a book, and the seeds for his book and what's happening with him are laid in this book. So while you could read these as standalones, they are best read in order to understand the story and the timeline. Essentially, Max is kind of withdrawn. Obviously, he still doesn't remember what happened, but he's feeling the effects of it. He really doesn't want to be in a relationship with anyone, and he struggles to sleep. And so he ends up going for these nighttime wanders. And he ends up going to a diner where Luke works. And Luke is very open, he's very flirty, he's very fun, he's 100% a golden retriever. He's the he falls first trope, it personified. And he just is enamored by Max the second he walks in. He recognizes that Max is going through something and he wants to make him smile. And so he's very persistent in trying to befriend Max and then eventually falling for him and trying to ask him out. Luke is known very much as a bit of a playboy, and Marcos warns him in the way of a best friend that he can't do that with Max. That's not where Max is at the moment. But it was just such a beautiful balance of someone who is so open, but recognizes that Max needs more support in developing the relationship, because the first time that they're intimate, Max throws up and has a panic attack because he has not been intimate with anyone since he was assaulted. And he hasn't told Luke that. And so he's, terrified of what Luke thinks of him and all of that. And eventually, as they become closer and Max opens up, Luke becomes one of his biggest defenders, and it is just a really, really sweet relationship. I spent the second half of this book in tears. For those who need to know, yes, the guilty party is identified, and yes, they are punished. If only real life worked like that more frequently. Then we have On the Edge, which is the third book in the series, and this one is following Henry, who is a German exchange student playing hockey, and he is fluent in a number of languages, but is, still learning and struggling a little bit with English. He thinks his English is not good. His English is pretty good. He ends up falling for a very black cat character called Atlas, because they are in the same communications class at school, and they are forced to work together because this class has assigned seating and assigned partners, and they do not get to change. Henry is the sweetest character. He's also ace. He is an absolute sweetheart, wants the best for everyone, would do anything for anyone. And he's trying to work out why Atlas doesn't like him. He cannot understand why, which is entirely an Atlas thing. Atlas believes that no one is that nice. And it turns out there are things in Atlas's past where he has not had good examples of actual love between people and solid relationships that are healthy. And so he doesn't understand and believes that he is allergic to love, but, kind of Henry weaves his way into his life. And it's really interesting, the discussions that they have around Henry's asexuality and how that impacts their relationship. There's a lot of caretaking in here, and it was delightful. Then book 4 is One Touch Past. This is Marcos's book, and he ends up falling for a character called Nate, who is also on the hockey team. Marcos plays baseball, Nate plays hockey. Lots of cross between those two sports in this series. Now, the seeds of this relationship were built up both in Save the Game and also On the Edge, because Nate is Atlas's roommate. So Nate has considered himself straight his entire life until he's at a party, which we find out in this first book, where he has a moment with Marcos. Doesn't know who Marcos is, doesn't know anything about him, but is just immediately attracted to him, and they have a moment in the backyard of this party. Marcos doesn't expect to see him again. Nate is determined to figure out who he is and find out more about him. This is very much a slow burn romance. Marcos, who is dealing with a lot of PTSD because of what happened to Max in the previous book. He was the one who took Max to the party. He ended up being distracted by some other friends and left Max alone. And then when he found Max drugged and having been assaulted, he has internalized a lot of that. And prior to that experience, Marcus had always experienced some level of touch aversion. Like he hasn't always been comfortable with people touching him. And since that event with Max, that has just increased, and his sensitivity to anyone coming in close proximity to him is almost unbearable. And I think what I like most about this book is the fact that it does go into other people around people who have been impacted by SA do still feel the effects of it, because Marcos believes that he is responsible because he left Max alone. Both Max and Marcos, even though they live together, they haven't really been good at communicating where they are, because they've both been dealing with trauma. And I really appreciate that in this series we've seen both sides of that, both the person most deeply impacted, but also the fact that it does impact people around them. And so Marcos struggles when people are interested in him, because a lot of the time he can't stand to be touched. And Nate is a very touchy-feely person, and so they are trying to navigate this relationship. Also, Nate is still figuring out where he is on the queer spectrum, but it was honestly delightful. Nate is also a cowboy in that he grew up on a ranch in Montana, and he's determined to take Marcos there during one of their breaks and just get him away and, get him to a place where that Nate finds peaceful and comforting. And it is really, really precious, because there is a baby horse that Nate puts Marcos in charge of caring for, and we know the power of animals and helping people to heal and understand themselves. And it's not about changing who Marcos is, but giving him an opportunity to be himself, when for a long time he's basically taken on this role of caretaker of his best friend. So I love this. It was gorgeous. And then the last book was The Last Puzzle, which also features one out ace character and one character who's kind of figuring out that maybe he is on the ace spectrum. So this one has no spice in it. Also, it is not my favorite thing, because all the promo for it said coach and player, but it's actually coach and ex-player. We have Desmond, who is an American-born Australian dual citizen who has been living in Australia because he grew up there, he came back for college, left because his parents are deeply homophobic, and is called back when his sister and her husband die, and he is given sole custody of their child, Parker. Parker is 9, and Desmond is both grieving his sister while also trying to be this really stable influence for his nephew, while his own parents are fighting him for custody because they believe his mother believes that he is a bad influence on Parker. So there is that storyline going on all the way through the book as kind of an underlying current, so just be mindful of that. Desmond gets a job as an assistant coach for the SCU hockey team. He has not really been a hockey player, but he has coached before and actually has this really strong passion for video review, which is something that he's able to pick up on trends and things. There's something he picks up about Nate, who was injured in the previous book, when Nate comes back to training for the start of the season, and he picks it up just by watching back the footage. And then we have Jack, or his nickname is Mickey, on the team because his full name is Jack McIntyre. And Jack is the goalie, but all through the series, we've known that Jack has extremely low self-esteem. He is a good goalie. His stats indicate that he's a good goalie, but he has no self-esteem. And we get the sense that he doesn't even like playing the sport. And it's not that he doesn't like playing hockey, it's he doesn't like being the center of attention, and he hates the focus being on him. So if something happens and he's in net, he will spiral. And Desmond is determined to help him work through some of that. They start out as friends. Because Jack went through the foster care system, he has a really tough time interacting with specifically older men. So he finds it really difficult to work with his coach, even though Nico is a good coach and cares really deeply about all of his players. He's just old enough that Jack doesn't know how to interact with him. Whereas Desmond is a little bit younger and recognizes that maybe what he needs is a friend. And even Nico says he does. He needs a friend. And if you being his friend helps to build that relationship to help build his game, great. We know that Jack has financial insecurity. He doesn't have a lot of support. And he's at school on a scholarship because he needs that support, but it's not tied to him playing sport, which is really important. As it goes on, basically, Jack is struggling to play completely. Like, he ends up turning around after a conversation with Desmond and thinking about it. He goes, I can't play anymore. My scholarship isn't dependent on me playing. It's actually not making me happy. It's making me miserable. And so he quits. He quits the team. And it's a hard thing for him because his best friend is on the team. That's Nate. And he is worried that Nate won't want to be friends with him anymore because they're not playing on the team, which is ridiculous because Nate is just attached to Jack. But that's how low his self-esteem is. Desmond continues to be Jack's friend. Parker, so Desmond's nephew, actually adores Jack. And he just wants to spend time with him. And there is some common ground there because Jack's parents died when he was really young, just like Parker's parents did. And so there is a sense of safety that Parker feels with Jack. And obviously the more time that they spend together, the more that this kind of platonic soulmate kind of relationship forms because neither of them are really all that interested in sex. Hugs, yes. Cuddles, yes. Intimacy, yes. But sex is not really something that either of them need or want. Also great representation to see on page in terms of healthy relationships. They do disclose their relationship. Nico does get really frustrated with Desmond at one point until he finds out the whole story, in which Desmond has always said, there was nothing, like when he was playing for us, there was absolutely nothing going on. And there wasn't. There was, aside from a friendship and an offer to use, someone's laundry to wash their clothes so they don't have to walk forever to pay for doing their laundry. Nothing went on because that's always my issue with player-coach relationships is power dynamics. And particularly in this case, because we're talking about a college age kid. But what there is a lot of really respectful mutual support for people who need it. Along with the ACE rep, there is also discussions around bulimia. So when Desmond was growing up, he was bulimic. He was in a really toxic family. His sister was his closest ally. She hated her parents, which is why Desmond ended up with custody of Parker in the will. And there are lots of moments through the book where Desmond's mother is trying to plant seeds of him being a terrible parent to the social workers and the courts as this custody is being disputed. So be mindful of that. If that's triggering, just look after yourself, take care, because it's in there a bit. I really loved the series. I think it was great. I loved all the characters. Highly recommend. In terms of things that I am hopefully going to read in the upcoming week, again, I'm not trying to set too many expectations. There's a couple of books that I have for review that are coming out in May. So there's Ode to the Half Broken, which is a sci-fi book, Evening the Score by Lexi LaFleur Brown, which is a hockey romance, and The Shippers by Katherine, I think. It's been a while since I read a Katherine, so that'll be fun. Can you tell I'm losing my voice? Good time to end this video now. That is my reading week. In the comments, I'd love to know what you have been reading. Have you read any of these books? Feel free to chat to me about them down below. Otherwise, feel free to share anything that you have been reading and loving. If you just want to let me know that you're here but don't leave a comment, feel free to leave a hockey emoji. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.